Welcome back to NewsWire here on SportsGrid. Great to have Peter Appel in the house to go over the latest from Just Baseball and Major League Baseball as well. And we think that when Peter comes on the show, we're going to have to dive in this slow, hot stove to some off topics. And then we get hot right before the show today. I like that. That's the way that it works here. So Peter's here with us. And certainly, Peter, the Athletic, the first to report that Nolan Arenado has a new home, and it is the Arizona Diamondbacks. And so his tenure comes up here in St. Louis to an end. He'll try and chase down a postseason appearance, maybe even a World Series ring here at the end. He's been the consummate professional, a multi-Gold Glove Award winner. I think it's 10 at least, if I'm not mistaken. But clearly at the end of his career, and in return, the Cardinals get nothing. They get some money. No offense to the player they got back in return, but truth be told, this was a money dump by the Cardinals who are going through a rebuild. So did I miss any perspective on this?
Not really. I think it's fun to highlight Nolan Arenado's stats at Chase Field in Arizona, his new ballpark. We actually just posted it on our Twitter page. In 77 games, he's hitting 280 with a 334 OBP and a 507 slug with 13 home runs and 25 doubles. So he loves hitting there. And of course, the defense is still really solid for Arenado. It's just the bat that has continued to decline as he ages, but the Diamondbacks are hoping, can he provide a spark, at least defensively, and can that bat fit in with our stadium? And one more thing that I'm interested to find out with Arizona is they still could use a first baseman. You know, they can move Pavin Smith maybe to the DH role, which they currently don't have one, or platoon with a former teammate of Nolan Arenado in Paul Goldschmidt. But I think it's a win now move for the Diamondbacks. And after they started to float Ketel Marte, they ended up keeping him in house, and now they're adding. And I think it's exactly what the Diamondbacks should be doing.
Peter, it's interesting because I always, I see the Marlins the most in spring training. And then the team that I see the second most is always the St. Louis Cardinals because they share the building with the Marlins. I got to tell you, this is going to be the most unusual Cardinal spring training I have seen in a really long, I want to say lifetime, but like a really, really, really long time. A lot of faces that I'm not going to know. Cardinals usually always bring in some star of some kind, trade, whatever. But definitely a rebuild. By the way, I'm with it. Heim Bloom, I think, is going to do a great job there, but it's just going to be different, I think, for them. So let's get to the big signing over the weekend. ESPN first reports that Alex Bregman goes to the Chicago Cubs, was offered a little bit more in terms of finances. So the Red Sox, I guess, Peter, apparently are a little butthurt that he didn't choose to go back to them. I don't know why he would if he's being offered more money by the Cubs. It certainly doesn't make sense to me. But I think Bregman will be very good, like he has been very good pretty much every year of his career. And a really nice ad for the Cubs, both on and off the field. I would say well done. Good signing for them.
I agree. And it was also reported that he chose the Cubs not only for the money, but for the no trade clause. He's a veteran. He's getting into his 30s and he wants to settle down with his family in one place. And I totally understand it. And it is reported that the Red Sox did not offer him the no trade clause and the Cubs did. And it's kind of a no brainer to go join the Cubs. And I love the pickup for Chicago. It's an absolute no brainer. Alex Bregman's a winner. He's been in 9 straight postseasons, and the Cubs are looking like they'll make another postseason run so he can make that 10 straight times going into October. And then in terms of the bat, he's one of 6 players since 2022 to strike out less than 15% and put up an OPS above 800. And in that span, he has the second lowest strikeout rate at 12.8%. So the Cubs paid him 5 for 175. I think it's a fair deal. I would rather have him than Kyle Schwarber or Pete Alonso. And you might wince at that because you look at the power output from both Alonso and Schwarber, and maybe in theory you would rather have that. But Bregman is a much more well-rounded player. He's also on the younger side between Schwarber and Alonso. I think he and Alonso are about the same age. And if you just look at WAR totals, you see it on the screen, and you can tell a big difference between Kyle Schwarber and Pete Alonso because of the defense coming with Bregman. So big time pickup for Chicago, and the Red Sox leave another one.
Yeah, I mean, Mookie Betts, Devers, Bregman. I mean, they're very good at losing to players at this point.
Chris
Since
Sale.
2016, yeah, Chris Sale too. Yeah. In terms of players since 2016 who made their debut in WAR, look at Bregman. He's right there after Aaron Judge, and very, very impressive. I agree with you. I think Bregman's going to age better than those other names that you mentioned too. Good signing for the Cubs. Meanwhile, the Cubs also made a trade, as you know, Peter, with the Miami Marlins this past week. Edward Cabrera is now a member of the Cubs, as he will be the number 2 or 3 starter in their starting rotation. In return, Miami gets back outfielder Owen Cassey, as well as some other nice young prospects. In particular, the first 2 that they got in the deal, I think, were impactful. The third, a little bit further down the line. So, a trade that I think will work well for both sides, provided that Cabrera is healthy. He will help out the Cubs rotation a lot, and Miami looking for more offense, and for what I would believe is attempting to sell high on a player, and so Miami believing they got the very best as to what they were going to see from Edward Cabrera this past season.
Yeah, I think they did get the very best in terms of a package coming home. Owen Casey is one of the best offensive prospects. And the only reason why I was a little bit confused is more on the Cubs side, because you let Kyle Tucker go, and now you might just be priced out of it. But a big reason why is Casey was going to be your starting right fielder next year. And now Kyle Tucker looks to be on his way out. And now you decide to trade Owen Casey. The good thing is the Cubs are getting back an electric arm. I mean, Craig, you've seen plenty of Edward Cabrera. Took a big step this season. That changeup is fantastic. Has a wide array of breaking balls and off-speed pitches. And if he can dial in that fastball a little bit more, this could be a top-end ace-level talent. And we see what the price is for a pitcher with this talent and what it's going to cost coming back with years of control. And overall, I'd be very happy if I'm a Miami Marlins fan. You get a big time prospect in return, and there's still that, uncertainty with Cabrera, just because this was the first season he proved he can stay healthy, and it was still about 140 innings. But if you are a Cubs fan, you're getting a guy with a ton of potential.
Definitely so. And by the way, the Cubs are still the favorites right now to win the National League Central. They moved a little bit ahead of the Brewers, who in the end we know are going to win the division. The Brewers are never going to be the favorite, but they're always going to win. Sort of shocking to see the Cardinals that far down below the Pirates at 20-1. All right, let's get to Tarik Skubal, who is going through arbitration, asking for 32 million. The reason why 32, Peter, is because Juan Soto got 31. So if you're an agent, you want to break the record. That's what they're going to try. So naturally, it did not. I mean, people make so much of this. It didn't matter what the Detroit Tigers wanted to pay him. They were going to file a lot less because they knew they were going to file at the record number here. I think people are forgetting that. I don't know if he's going to break the record or not. That room is really strange, those arbitration rooms, Peter, but certainly he's going to get close. He'll get the most ever for a pitcher. It's just a matter if he breaks Soto's record.
Yeah, I do not want to be sitting in those rooms on the side of the Tigers telling Tarik Skubal why he's not worth that amount of money. And you could say, well, Juan Soto was a Super 2 guy, so he got an extra year of arbitration, so automatically that number is going to be a little bit bigger. So Skubal, for you to go break that record, it still doesn't make sense. Can we settle somewhere in the middle? My hope is that the Tigers don't lowball him out of the room, because we saw what happened with Milwaukee and Corbin Burns, and it really soured that relationship. So I would just like to see the Tigers maybe even spend foolishly in this arbitration room just to keep good graces with Skubal.
Peter, I'm here to tell you, I'm sorry. Not going to happen. That's not the way that it works. They hire people to go into arbitration and win those cases. We'll take a quick break. When we come back with Peter, the Atlanta Braves made a signing recently, and they've bolstered their bullpen. Is it enough in the NL East? We'll discuss that next. You're watching NewsWire here on SportsGrid. Peter Appel of Just Baseball is back with us. Their show's coming up in 15 minutes. Lots of baseball discussion to be had, so make sure you stay on the grid for that. Let's wrap things up with Peter by talking about, it's been kind of slow. There hasn't been a lot of free agent news. There still are a lot of free agents out there. So this segment is not going to be the Tyler Kinley segment, but it gives us an opportunity to talk about the Braves, who have definitely bolstered one very weak spot of their team last year, which is the bullpen. Adding Kinley to that, and then Aaron Bummer last year, and bringing Iglesias back. It does feel like the Braves and Alex Anthopoulos identified something that they needed to get better at. And even though this was a kind of like a minor signing overall in baseball last year, I think the indication is Atlanta sort of feels like, hey, we don't want games costing us after the fifth or sixth inning. Do you think that they have done enough in that respect? I can't see them spending any more money at this point on that.
I would like to see them add one more arm. I think bringing in Kinley is important, though. When he came over from Colorado, he was putting up a 5.66 ERA, but the Braves identified, excuse me, that this guy has excellent breaking balls. He can really spin the baseball. His slider and his curveball take up about 80% of his arsenal, and he comes over to Atlanta and puts up an ERA under 1 in 25 innings. So I thought it was really, really important for them to bring him back. But the issue is they lost an important bullpen piece in Pierce Johnson, who just signed with the Cincinnati Reds. And Pierce Johnson put up a great season for them. I still think that they need to replace that arm. They've done pretty well in the bullpen so far this offseason. And if they roll into 2026 with this current bullpen, it's good, but I would like a little bit more to continue to compete to go win this division.
Fair enough. Now let's get to the names that everyone is still out there discussing as we have for a while. And here we are in January. And look, I think that the offseason has actually gone better than I thought it was going to go, Peter. But reality is, until we get the CBA fixed, this is what we deal with. Arguably the very best player on the free agent market, unsigned. Kyle Tucker, still out there in January. This opened up in November. Can somebody please make this happen and get Kyle Tucker signed? Meanwhile, Bo Bichette reportedly asking for a ton of money. I'd be shocked if he got what he was asking for, but I guess we'll see. And it does feel inevitable at some point that Cody Bellinger does go back to the Yankees. Too much chatter, I think, about machinations of what a deal may look like. It feels like they're playing this through the media a little bit. So I say Bellinger goes back to New York. I got no feel, by the way, on Tucker or Bichette. Tucker initially, I think maybe we thought he would end up with the Blue Jays. Now we're not hearing as much. What do you think ends up happening with those two?
So there was a report today from Will Salmon, and he said that the Mets are interested in giving Kyle Tucker a 3 to 4 year deal in the 120 to $140 million range, which would be one of those classic, really high AAV deals on a shorter term deal. And if I'm Kyle Tucker, obviously I want the big long term deal. But if this one has opt outs and you can go over to New York and play with that team, get into October and play postseason baseball, and kind of right some of the wrongs that happened going into his, free agency season where he was hurt a little bit, struggled in the playoffs. I think those are the main concerns for giving a guy a 10-year deal. And it works right into exactly what David Stearns and Steve Cohen want to do because they're willing to spend money. Stearns has just come out and said, we don't want to give out these super long-term deals. And we're a year removed from them giving Juan Soto $765 million and then winning under 85 games. So they have to look in the mirror and say, is this really the way to win? Is to spend on these big time guys? So for me, the Mets need an outfielder, and Kyle Tucker is the best of the bunch. And if he agrees to a deal like that, I think the Mets will go over what a team like the Dodgers would give. And I'm sure the Blue Jays will still offer a big long-term deal. The thing is, do the Blue Jays truly need an outfielder? They already have a glut. You're expecting Anthony Santander to come back. And that's why I still think Bo Bichette to the Blue Jays makes more sense than Tucker, just because you can move Ernie Clement around and there's your position at second base. You can even move him back to shortstop and move Andres Jimenez back over to second base, right? And use Ernie Clement in this super utility role. Bring back the core. He's good friends with Vladdy. I think Bichette ends up landing back in Toronto. I think Tucker signs with the Mets. And I'm really not sure about Bellinger. I'm really not, because the Yankees do not want to go above 5 years, $150 million. That's been reported through multiple outlets. And Bellinger's looking for a 7-year deal. It might come to terms. He might come to terms and say, all right, I'm not getting it from anywhere else. I'll go back to New York. But truly, if I'm the Yankees, I'm giving Jason Dominguez the run in left field. I'm not signing Cody Bellinger to that big deal. And I think, every Yankee fan would disagree with me here, but I would just be a little nervous about giving a guy $150 million after his best season since 2019.
Yeah, no, it's true. I mean, he really had that incredible MVP season, and hasn't been the same. Been up and down, and We'll see. We'll see what the Yankees end up doing. It's fascinating. All right. So in terms of pitching here, we do have a couple of mega deals. I'm assuming Framber Valdez and Ranger Suarez will both get that 100 plus million. I don't know what Zach Gallen will end up getting, but he's the third, I would say, best starting pitcher out there. Peter, is that fair to say? I have heard nothing with Framber going back to Houston. They signed him, so that could be it there. And I've heard nothing about Suarez going back to Philadelphia either. So where's the destinations for these guys?
Craig, when you were saying that, I was smiling to myself because I just posted on Twitter, X, whatever you want to call it, the other day. And I said, I haven't heard a single rumor about these two. And it was
Yeah,
Fromber and it was Ranger. I haven't heard anything. I don't know if
nothing.
short-term deal, long-term deal, teams interested. Of course, Fromber has had that problem last year with the switch up with the catcher. I'm sure teams are looking at that. And Ranger Suarez throws about 90 miles an hour, so I'm sure teams are concerned. But I haven't heard a single thing. But I want the Detroit Tigers to get involved. If you're not going to get Skubal, show your fans that you're going to sign one of these guys.
Think so. I would like to see, especially Gallen, who I got to know here in South Florida. I'd like to see him land in a good spot. But the longer this goes, it sort of tells me maybe it's another short term deal where he has to go back out there after the season because this season was not his best. But all right, great stuff, Peter. We'll catch you on Just Baseball coming up in about 10 minutes. Thanks again for coming on Newswire. Really appreciate it.
Thanks so much for having me. It was fun.